Hotel family, life, prosperity, and health. This your brother Matthew Daniels, aka Ampu, and you all saw the title of this video. This one is going to be about the tale of the shipwrecked sailor. Now, the tale of the shipwrecked sailor is an ancient Egyptian tale that comes down to us from the mid to late 12th dynasty of Egypt, right? And if you're not sure when the 12th dynasty of Egypt was, here's a chart for you guys to look at that illustrates the rulers along with their corresponding dates of range of dates that they ruled in the 12th dynasty of Egypt. So if you take a look at this chart right here, you can see that the 12th dynasty of Egypt lasted from around 1991 BCE and it ended at around 1802 BCE. So if we're talking about mid to late 12th dynasty of Egypt, we're talking about somewhere around 1900 to around 1800 BCE, somewhere within that 100-year time frame. Now, excuse me. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with chronology and how chronology works, when someone is saying 1900 BCE, they're talking about 1,900 years before the Common Era. So this is equivalent to around 3,900 years ago. So the text that I'm going to be reading to you guys today is very, very old. It's one of the oldest stories on the face of the planet, right? And the individual that wrote it was an Egyptian scribe by the name of Emene. I apologize to the ancient if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to be pronouncing it Emene. Now, Emene, at the end of the work known as the Tale of the Shipwrecked Sailor, Emene lets us know that he is only copying a text that was found from an earlier period in Egypt's history. But you're going to notice, if you ever have or if you ever intend to look into ancient Egyptian literature, which I encourage everyone to do, by the way, what you're going to find out if you ever start looking into it is that a lot of the dates that we have for these particular texts are not the dates of their origin. They're the dates of the origin of the copies that have made it down to our time in 2019. Okay, what a lot of Egyptian scribes would do when they would go into the archives and they would go into the libraries and they would find ancient scrolls that their ancestors had written centuries and even millenniums before their time. And if those papyrus scrolls were damaged, if those stelae were damaged in any way, if the papyrus scrolls were worm-eaten, what the scribes would do, they would make copies of the text so that the information within the text could be preserved. Okay, so there's no telling how old this story actually is. As of right now, we don't really have enough information to tie down exactly when this story was actually written. Now, what I'm going to be doing, family, there's several translations of this text that you can find, but what I'm going to be reading to you is my version of this text. A lot of times you will notice that various translations may have certain words and phrases translated slightly differently, and if you're familiar with Kemetic literature, sometimes the style of writing is hard to grasp from a 2019 mind state, 2019 mentality. It's much like how some people cannot read what they call the old King's English with the these and the thous and the thereforts and whatnot. People find it hard to read that with today's mind state. So imagine how much harder it may be to read ancient Kemetic literature with today's mind state. So what I did, I consider myself to be an Asarian, okay? I practice Kemetic religion, spirituality, culture to the best of my ability. I gather what I can from the text and I apply it to my life in the best way that I can. So what I did for my own particular walk is I created something that I called the Asarian Book of Life. And what I did was I canonized particular Kemetic Egyptian stories that explains their cosmology, their worldview, their religious views, their spiritual views, and I interwove that with a storyline that goes all the way from the beginning of the creation of the universe to my time right now, and I explain how I came into the knowledge of ancient Kemet, and I chose text to add into my canonized version of the Asarian Book of Life that laid out in a chronological point, in a chronological stance of sorts, how the Egyptian people believed the universe was created, and subsequently the Neteru, or the gods, quote unquote, were created, their interactions with man, etc., etc., and how mankind took those lessons, corrupted those lessons, etc., etc. Now, what I did was I took various translations of Kemetic text, Egyptian text, and I made my own version of these multiple translations so that I could write the stories in a way in which it made more sense to the 2019 mind. So what I'm going to be reading to you guys, I'm going to be reading to you the authentic tale of the shipwrecked sailor, but I'm going to be reading to you my version of the tale of the shipwrecked sailor from my canonized Kemetic doctrine known as the Asarian Book of Life. Okay, so in the section of the Asarian Book of Life known as the Sacred Text of Dahuti is where one will find the tale of the shipwrecked sailor. Now, I do have this typed up on my computer. I do have a printed copy of the Asarian Book of Life, but for the sake of this video, I don't know. I feel like it'll be, I feel like it'll feel more authentic if I read from my actual handwritten notes that I diligently took when I was creating the Asarian Book of Life. So without any further ado, I'm going to go to the text. Like the video, share the video, comment on the video, tell other people about it, and they can always come and watch this video and use it as a audio book video if they like to just hear the story again. Now, I want to let you know that at various points during the reading of the text, I'm going to be pausing to briefly explain what the text is saying, but for the most part, I'm just going to let the text speak for itself. I hope I didn't take up too much time. Okay, the Asarian Book of Life, written by the chief scribe Matthew Daniels, aka Ampu. The Sacred Text of Dahuti, the tale of the shipwrecked sailor. This text was given to humanity by the Neter Dahuti during the time when Heru reigned on earth. This tale was handed down through the ages from scribe to scribe and thus preserved until the time of the chief scribe Matthew Daniels. Be made aware, Asarian, that the Neter Dahuti has placed multiple levels of wisdom within this tale. Do not read this only for the surface information. Study this text and meditate upon these words and ask Asar to send Dahuti unto you to make the hidden things known. Dahuti says to the Asarian, the worthy attendant said, take heart, my lord. We have reached home. The mallet has been seized, the mooring post staked, the prow rope placed on land. Praise is given, Asar is thanked. Everyone embraces his fellows. Our crew has returned safely. Our troops have had no loss. We have left Wawet behind. We have passed in Moot. We have returned in safety. We have reached our land. Now listen to me, my lord. I am not exaggerating. Wash yourself. Pour water over your fingers. You must answer when questioned. You must speak to the king with presence of mind. You must answer without stammering. A man's mouth can save him. His speech makes one forgive him. But do as you like. It is tiresome to talk to you. But I shall tell you something like it that happened to me. I had set out to the king's mines and had gone to sea in a ship of 120 cubits in length and 40 cubits in width. Pause. Now, just to give you a little context to how the story is beginning, the sailor, the main character in the tale of the shipwrecked sailor, he's basically saying that he has returned back unto the land of Kemet from a journey at sea. And he's talking to the king of Egypt, to the king of Kemet, and he is explaining to him what happened to him while he was at sea. So you have the shipwrecked sailor, the main character, explaining to the king of Egypt what happened to him on his journey out to sea once he has already returned. Okay, this is how the story is starting off. Back to the text, verse 8. 120 sailors were in it of the pick of Egypt. Looked they at sky, looked they at land. Their hearts were stouter than lions. They could foretell a storm before it came, a tempest before it broke. A storm came up while we were at sea, before we could reach land. As we sailed, it made a swell, and in it a wave of 8 cubits tall. The wave struck the mast. Then the ship died. Of those in it, not one remained. I was cast on an island by a wave of the sea. I spent 3 days alone, with my heart as my only companion. Lying in the shelter of trees, I hugged the shade. Pause. So what he's saying is, the sailor, along with 120 other adept sailors from the land of Egypt, set sail one day on a mission for the king to go to the mines. Okay, and he's saying that the sailors that were with him were the best in all the land. They could look at the sky, they could look at the waters, they could look at the land, and they could foretell when a storm was approaching. They were meteorologists, they were astronomers, they were astrologers, they were sailors of the highest caliber, the best in all the land. But once they were out to sea, a storm overtook the ship. And the storm was so great that even though there were 120 skilled sailors on board, the waves, a giant wave 8 cubits tall, hit the ship, flipped the ship over, the ship died. I imagine it broke into pieces. And he is saying that everybody died but him. Okay? And after everybody died, the ship wrecked. He was washed ashore of this island that he has no knowledge of. He was washed ashore of this island, and for 3 days, he laid in the shade, not knowing what he was going to do. You could just imagine his plight. Okay, back to the text. Verse 10. Then I stretched my legs and wandered around searching to discover what I might use for food. I found figs and grapes there, all sorts of fine vegetables, sycamore figs, both unnotched and notched, and also cucumbers that grew as if they have been tended to by someone. Fish were there also, and fowls of various kinds. There is nothing that was not there. I gathered as much as I could and stuffed my arms. Then I put some of the food back down because I had too much in my arms. Then I cut a fire drill, made a fire, and gave a burnt offering to a saw for providing me with food. Pause. So after 3 days, not knowing what he was going to do, getting delirious, probably mourning the loss of the 120 top sailors that were with him, wondering how he's going to get home, thinking about his family, his wife, his kids, thinking about his homeland, the land of Kemet, he decides that, hunger sets in. So he decides that he's going to search the island to see if he can find sustenance, see if he can find food, see if he can find clean water, see if he can find anything to help him survive on the island. And what he finds when he begins to search the island, he finds everything imaginable. I mean, it is food galore. It's fishes, it's nuts, it's berries, it's everything. And some of the things that are growing on the island appear to be tended to by someone, as in not growing wild, but as in growing cultivated. So the sailor, he gathers up everything that he can, you know. He gathers up so much food, so much resources that it's too much for him to carry back to his little campsite sitting in the shade. So he puts some of the food back down, carries off all of the food that he can carry, and what does he do? Immediately, he digs a fire drill, probably makes like a little fire pit. He creates a fire. He's skilled. We know that he's skilled, stranded on a desert island, but he was able to make fire. He's skilled. He makes a fire, and what does he do? He offers a burnt offering to the great netter Esau for providing for him. Now think about that. His ship is destroyed. All of his shipmates have been killed. He's been stranded on this desert island for days. He does not know how he's going to get home. He does not know if he's ever going to see his wife and kids again. And he does not know what dangers may or may not await him on this island. But when he searches the island and he finds food, he is so grateful for that he immediately makes an offering to the great netter Esau for providing for him. He stopped having the pity party. Okay? And he was grateful for what he did have in his time of struggles. I'll go into that more later. But remember, you have to look at the deeper meaning of these stories. The Egyptians, the Kemetic people, they didn't just tell these stories just to have feel-good stories. There's always an underlying moral, spiritual, religious principle that is trying to be imparted upon the reader. And sometimes you need someone skilled in the art of understanding what that is and explaining it so that you can get it. But now it's not the video. I'm simply just reading the text just to put the text on the record. But I want you to see how this is flowing. Understand some of the things that is being taught to you. Okay? Back to the text. Verse 11. Then I heard a thundering noise and thought, it is a wave of the sea. Trees splintered. The ground trembled. Uncovering my face, I found that the noise was a great snake that was coming. He was 30 cubits long, and his beard was over 2 cubits long. His body was overlaid with gold. His eyebrows were of real lapis lazuli. He was bent up in front. Then he opened his mouth to me while I was on my belly before him. He said, "Who brought you? Who brought you here, fellow? Who brought you? If you delay in telling me who brought you to this island, I shall make you find yourself reduced to ashes, becoming like a thing unseen." I said to him, "Though you speak to me, I do not hear it. I am before you without knowing myself." Then he took me in his mouth, carried me to the place where he lived, and set me down unhurt. I was still whole, and he did not eat any of my limbs. Then he opened his mouth to speak to me again, while I laid on my belly in front of him. He said to me, "Who brought you? Who brought you, fellow? Who brought you to this island of the sea which is surrounded by water?" Then I answered him, my arms bent before him. I said to him, I had set out to the mines on a mission of the king in a ship of 120 cubits in length and 40 cubits in width. 120 sailors were in it, of the pick of Egypt. They looked at the sky and they looked at the land. Their hearts were stouter than lions. They were so skilled that they could foretell a storm before it came and a tempest before it strikes. Each one of them, his heart was stouter, his arm stronger than his mates. There was no fool among them. A storm came up while we were at sea, before we could reach land. As we sailed, there was a swell, and in it a wave, which was 8 cubits tall. The wave struck the mast, and then the ship died. Of those 120 sailors, not one remained, except myself, who is here with you. When my ship was destroyed, I was brought to this island by a wave of the sea. Pause. I want y'all to think about something. Okay? It's a reason why the author of this story, it is a reason why Dahudi imparted this to the scribe who originally wrote this text. And there is a reason why they keep reiterating to you that there was 120 highly skilled sailors with him. They could look at the sky, they could look at the land, and they can look at the waters, and they could foretell when a storm would come. But yet it was a storm that overtook the ship, smashed the ship, and destroyed them all. They are the most trained in Egypt at noticing when a storm would come, yet a storm is what took them out. Some things are destined to happen. Some things are bound to happen no matter how much you think you could prepare. You may be preparing for a journey from point A to point B, and you can do everything. Think of everything that could go wrong and account for how to keep it from going wrong. But if it's in the will of a Saul for that thing to seem to go wrong but really be going right, then that thing is going to go wrong, which is really going right. You can be trained to see a storm and still be overtaken by a storm if it's in the will of a Saul for you to be overtaken by the storm. Because the outcome of being overtaken by the storm could be greater than the outcome of never encountering the storm in the first place. Do you hear what I'm telling you? You can avoid the storm and find more trouble than you would find if you encounter the storm and have your shipwrecked. But that's for another day. Back to the text. Verse 18. Then he said to me, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, fellow. Do not be pale-faced now that you have come to me. It is a Saul who has let you live and brought you to this island of the Ka. Pause. The serpent told him, the snake told him, it is a Saul. Do not be afraid of me. Because the serpent realized, the snake realized from the story that he just told, he realized that wisdom that I just imparted to you. He realized that if you were with trained sailors who were trained to notice the storm, and yet you were overtaken by a storm and sent to this island that no man even knows of, then it must be by the will of a Saul that you arrived on this island. So do not be afraid. Do not become pale-faced. It is by the will of a Saul that you have reached this island of the Ka. And Ka means spirit. This spiritual island. You have come to this spiritual place by the will of a Saul. So do not be afraid. Do not feel bad. Do not beat yourself up. Do not stay in a low place. Get up, dust yourself off, and understand that what you are going through because it's the will of a Saul. And the outcome of this thing will be greater than what it was you set out for in the first place. Do you hear what I'm telling you? Back to the text. We were in verse 18. Right after where it says, brought to you this island of the Ka, island of the spirit. There is nothing that is not in it. It is full of all good things. You shall pass month upon month until you have completed 4 months in this island. Then a ship will come from your home with sailors in it, whom you know. You shall go home with them, and you shall die in your town. How happy is he the snake continued, who tells what he has tasted when the calamity has passed. I shall tell you something similar that happened on this island. I was here with my brothers, and there were children with them. In all, we were 75 serpents, children, and brothers, without mentioning a little daughter whom I had obtained through prayer. Then a star fell, and they went up in flames through it. The star burned them all up. It just so happened that I was not with them in the fire. I was not among them. I could have died, though, for their sake, when I found them as one heap of corpses. If you are brave and control your heart, you shall embrace your children. You shall kiss your wife. You shall see your home. That is better than everything else. You shall reach home. You shall be there among your brothers. Pause. Now the serpent is telling them, after he has already given them some strength, that you are on the path of assault. This is why you are here. The serpent now tells them, something similar happened to me. Let me tell you what I went through. And the serpent has the story of what his family, 75 in all, was murdered when a star fell from the sky, which could very well be a meteor. He could be talking about a meteor. Or it could just be a metaphorical star fell from the heavens and hit the ground. We're not going to look too deep into that. But they were all murdered, killed, slain. His whole family. Right? His whole family. And then he's telling the shipwrecked sailor that, but you, if you remain strong, if you remain strong and you remain brave of heart, you will see your homeland again. You will kiss your wife. You will hug your children. You will see your brothers, and you will die in your homeland. That is better than anything else. Yes, you've been shipwrecked here for days. Yes, your ship crashed. Yes, you lost 120 good men, good solid men from the land of Egypt. But your family is okay. Do you care about your family? Do you call your parents on the phone? Do you tell your children that you love them? Or would you rather spend more time with your friends, your homeboys? Huh? Would you rather spend time out and about, running the streets? Or would you rather spend time sitting at home with your loved ones, talking to your wife, talking to your children? Because that is better than anything else. If you lose your family, then you will realize that losing anything else is not as bad. Hello. Back to the text. Verse 22. Stretched out on my belly, I touched the ground before him. Then I said to him, I shall speak of your power to the king, and I shall let him know of your greatness. I shall send you Ibn and canoe oils, laudanum, hyssop spice, and the incense of the temples, which pleases all of the Neteru. I shall tell them all what happened to me and what I saw of your power. One will praise the Neteru for you in the city before the counselors of the whole land. I shall slaughter oxen for you as a burnt offering. I shall sacrifice geese to you. I shall send you ships loaded with all the treasures of Egypt, as is done for the Neteru who befriends people in a distant land not known to the people. So what the sailor now is saying, when I make it back home, I'm going to tell everybody about you in this place and how great you are and how all the things that you have. And when I get back to the land of Egypt, I'm going to send you this, and I'm going to send you incense. I'm going to send you spices. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you that, and I'm going to make your name great. I'm going to burn incense in the temple for you. I'm going to make you great. Everybody will know how powerful you are. This is what he's telling the serpent he's going to do for him when he get back home, for explaining the things of assault to him. Back to the text, verse 24. Then he laughed at me. Then he laughed at me for the things I had said, which seemed foolish to him. He said to me, you are not rich in myrrh and all kinds of incense, but I am the Lord of Punt, and myrrh is my very own. That canoe oil you spoke of sending, it abounds on this island. Moreover, when you have left this place, you will not see this island again. It will have become water. Then the ship came, as he had foretold, I went and placed myself on a tall tree so I could see the ship as it approached. I recognized those that were in it. When I went to report it to the snake, I found that he already knew that they had arrived. He said to me, in health, fellow, to your home, that you may see your children. Make me a good name in your town. That is all that I ask of you. I put myself on my belly, my arms bent before him. Then he gave me a load of myrrh, canoe oil, laudanum, hyssop spice, tips of spice, perfume, eye paint, giraffe's tails, great lumps of incense, elephant tusk, greyhounds, long-tailed monkeys, baboons, and all kinds of precious things. I loaded them on the ship. Then I put myself on my belly to thank him. And he said to me, you will reach home in 2 months. You will embrace your children. You will flourish at home. You will be buried. I went down to the shore near the ship. I hailed the crew which was in the ship. I gave praise on the shore to the Lord of the island, and those in the ship did the same thing. Then we sailed north to the king's residence. We reached the residence in 2 months, just as he had said. I went in to the king. I presented to him gifts I had brought from the island. He praised the Tsar for me in the presence of the counselors of the whole land. I was made an attendant and endowed with serfs of his. The snake came to see me after I had reached land, to check on me and to see how I was doing. He found me frustrated with the people, because they would not listen to what I had to say, even after all that I had seen and after all that I had tasted. Listen to me, I told the people. It is good for you to listen to me. He said to me, do not make an effort, my friend. Who would give water at dawn to a goose that will be slaughtered in the morning? Pause. So when he makes it back home, the serpent sends him away with all of the blessings and gifts that he said he was going to give to the serpent. Remember, I told you sometimes your shipwreck is to get you to the island of the spirit, to where you can realize a source plan for you, and there you will be blessed tenfold more than if you would have made it to your destination without encountering the storm. And once he got back, he says he went around trying to tell everybody what happened. You know, sometimes we go through a storm, we go through a struggle, and we just want to tell somebody what happened. We want to tell someone how good Asari is. We want to tell someone how good Amirai is. We want to just tell someone what we saw. We want to tell someone about our adventure. We want to tell somebody about our life, because it's interesting to us. And then we'll get frustrated with that individual because that individual isn't as interested in your tale as you are. And you will get frustrated all over again. And instead of being happy about the blessings that you got at the other end of the storm, you will get down and out once again, because other people are not partaking in your joy with you. Sometimes you have to just learn how to be happy with what Asar has given you. And whether or not somebody else can understand it, whether or not somebody else can see it, whether or not somebody else can feel it in their heart, in their heart, do not get frustrated, do not get sad, right? Because you have just been blessed. You have just overcome. You have just went on a journey. You have just been shipwrecked and you have been saved. Why not rejoice? Why be frustrated because people aren't interested in the story? People aren't interested in the testimony. People aren't interested in the tale. Enjoy your blessing. And you see what the serpent told him, imparted some more wisdom to him. He said, don't make an effort, my friend. Don't even make an effort to try to get certain people on your level. Don't even waste your time trying to get people to enjoy your joy how you are enjoying your joy. Don't even waste your time trying to make someone feel about your blessing how you feel about your blessing, because for one, they may just get jealous and try to take it from you. But definitely don't let them bring you down. He says, who would give water at dawn to a goose that will be slaughtered in the morning? Who would give water? You wake up at dawn with some water to go take to a goose that you know in a few hours is going to be slaughtered anyway. What's the point? What's the point? What? Sometimes you got to understand, you got to look at some people and by their own actions, by their dispositions, by the contents within their own soul, their own spirit, their own heart. They're not even worth it. They're not even worth it. They're going to bring about their own destruction momentarily anyway. It's like, why would you waste your life, time that you could be spending being happy? Why would you waste time that you could spend with your family being happy, trying to convince someone destined for destruction to be happy right along with you? What's the point? Why would you waste, listen to me, why would you waste time that you could be spending being happy, trying to convince someone who's destined for destruction anyway to be happy about what you're happy about? You're wasting your time trying to convince them, so you're not being happy, they're not being happy, they're headed for destruction, and when they are destroyed, here you are, months, weeks, years under your belt, wasted time that you could have been spending with your wife, could have been spending with your husband, could have been spending with your children, brothers, sisters, mother, father, what have you, could have been spending with your family in your hometown and doing those things which pleaseth your ka, which pleaseth your spirit, but yet and still you wanted to waste time on someone that was headed for destruction. You need to be able to identify people who are headed for destruction and don't want to change. Some people don't want to change. If individuals want to change, yes, you should try to help them, but you don't help them to your own hurt. That's crazy. But some people are destined for destruction. Some people are the goose that you should not give water to at dawn because they are going to be slaughtered at morning anyway. Message. Back to the text. Verse 33. It is done from beginning to end as it was found in writing, preserved by the scribe with skilled fingers, Imene, son of Imene. Life, prosperity, health. The chief scribe, Matthew Daniels, has completed this version of the text. I thank the scribe Imene for their work. I hope you all got something out of that reading. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of the story. There are deeper things that we can go into about the story. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but the size of the ship was 120 cubits, right? And there were 120 sailors on the ship. There's a reason for that. It was 75. The serpent had 75 individuals that were killed. There's a reason for that. There's always reasons behind this. And you know how he told the how the serpent told the sailor that he was going to spend 4 months on the island and then he was going to go home, right? Take into consideration that an average month is 30 days. Right? So what's 30 times 4? It's 120. Okay? So if you have the ship is 120 cubits, there's 120 sailors on the ship, right? And then he spent 120 days on the island. The 120 obviously has some type of significance. It has some type of meaning. They didn't just keep putting this number in there for no reason. Okay? Don't forget, like the video, share the video, comment on the video, tell people about this, and I hope you like my version out of the Asarian Book of Life, the section with the sacred text of Dahuti. Again, I classify myself as an Asarian. Don't come with the pseudo claims. Yes, I made it up. I'm not gonna front. Yeah, I made it up, but guess what? Any religious system on the face of the planet, someone made it up. So why do I need to follow letter for letter something that someone else made up when I can when I can not just make up my own because I'm drawing from the Kemetic text, but I can interpret it how it means to me. I'm not telling anybody else that they have to be on the Sorry, you know, that they need to read this Sorry Book of Life. But if you want it, you know, you can talk to me about it. Comment me, email me, and I can see what I can do about getting you a copy. But you know, my canonized version. But yeah, just leave a comment, man. Tell me what you think, and I'll be doing more videos like this. I'll be coming more and more out of the Saurian Book of Life, breaking down some of these Egyptian texts, because I know that, for one, a lot of people haven't read too much Egyptian literature, and then for two, they're only looking at the Egyptian literature from a surface level. And the majority of people who get into Egypt, they're leaving other religions like Christianity, Judaism, Islam. They're leaving these other religions, and they don't want to get bogged back down into religion. So they're not looking for the spiritual aspect in the stories. They're just looking for the stories for what they are. But if there is a spiritual teaching or moral teaching embedded within those stories, somebody has to go in and extract it, because they didn't just write it for it to be a feel-good story. Even novels that you have today, man, it could be The Wizard of Oz, you know, or Dr. Seuss, the Lorax. There's moral teachings embedded within the stories that one has to withdraw, extract, and share with the world. Okay, The Life of the Shipwrecked Sailor, Matthew Daniels, Chief Scribe, aka Ampu. Life, prosperity, and health. I love y'all.